Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to the TFT Perspective. Today, we have a very interesting topic to discuss. It's concerning the issues that have arisen in the northeastern areas of India, as well as the recent political changes inside Bangladesh, the looming civil war that has been ongoing inside Myanmar for at least more than a year now, and the repercussions that are going to follow. So, last 3 weeks have been quite hectic when it comes to the Indian foreign policy and the politics surrounding Bangladesh, especially after the removal of Sheikh Hasina's regime. Things seem to be not really exciting and good at the Indian front. In fact, a lot of their media analysts, politicians, former military generals, even the current regime is trying to shy away from the topic of Bangladesh, since a lot of things inside Bangladesh were actually controlled from the Indian side of affairs, especially when it comes to Bangladesh's foreign policy, its economics, as well as postings within the military circles. So we are going to discuss this in reference to the recent changes close to the Chinese border, the Suruguri corridor, especially what India is trying to seek out of this crisis, and whether it's going to completely sideline the storm it is currently facing, or it's going to come up with a new plan. We have with us Mr. Wakar K. Korvi. Sir, how do you think that the changes in the political landscape of Bangladesh are going to impact the region? And why do you think India is so damn scared about the current situation?
I think Bangladesh has gone through a tectonic shift, as they say, in geopolitics, because there was a regime which was definitely supported by India, and somehow Indian policymakers and leadership since 2014 they started assuming that basically it was a vassal state, and Indian interests related to security, commerce, trade, and foreign policy could be served by Bangladesh. And if you look at the SAARC region, I think it was the most pliant state under Hasina Wajid. So that was the assumption, and somehow Indian, I would say, policymakers were able to exploit the situation. Now, if you look at the geography of Bangladesh, it's very important. It is said that Bangladesh is locked by India from three sides. However, Indian northeast is locked by Bangladesh also. So geography has, I would say, a very tricky and interesting interaction, and I'm sure we're going to show them the maps for the audience
Yeah.
that how does it interact. So Bangladesh actually impacts Indian northeast, and we have a list of.
So things are not just focused primarily on Bangladesh, it's all around.
Yes, all on because of the geography and demography. So if you start from north, you have Arunachal Pradesh, which has again, which is called South Tibet by the Chinese. So it's an unsettled region. Then you have Assam, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, and Tripura. So these are the states either directly or indirectly connected with Bangladesh. And then also you combine the Myanmar situation. So if you look at the map of the Myanmar, again, the insurgency is actually all across Myanmar, and we'll discuss that also. But it also borders, a lot of Indian states, right from Arunachal Pradesh. Then you have Nagaland, Mizoram, and to some extent, Tripura, etc. So it means you have a destabilized state, very large state. Mind you, Myanmar is probably larger than even Pakistan in terms of geography. And now you have Bangladesh, where you have a turn of government, which has gone 180 degree. And as per Indian, debate on social media and mainstream media, and their policymakers are worried. And then they have tension with China. So all combined. So this becomes a huge region. That's why when you talk of Greater Bengal, we should include Bangladesh, Western Bengal, then of course areas which are Bengali speaking. So all combined, this area is about, you're talking of 250 to 280 million Bengalis, Muslims and Hindus. So it creates, a very interesting situation, and that's why India should be worried. I see that there's very less discussion taking place in our part of the world. It's very important that now we start focusing on the region, the Indian Northeast. And if you combine Myanmar, Bangladesh, Indian Northeast, West Bengal, Odisha, and even if you go up to Sikkim, uh, Chinese Tibet, and Chinese South Tibet, it's very, very interesting.
Yeah. Another important factor I was going to discuss is that the Indians are trying to build a narrative that the CIA, the Inter-Service Intelligence, then Mossad, certainly there is a name there as well, and the Chinese are overall trying to disturb this region, which is going to create drastic proportions, and India as a whole is going to be under threat in the upcoming 3 to 5 years. So, in that domain, when it comes to perceptions, what's the reality behind it? What is China thinking? What the US wants from this region? And other than that, what would Pakistan get out of this disturbance?
Yeah, if you look at geopolitics, I think there are very major, very large players in the region, and I would say the matrix of this region is so much complex. It's very difficult to simply find a solution or project. For instance, if you start from Myanmar, and we have the map here. Uh, in Myanmar, we have a military government led by General Ming on Helaine, and we have, as you said, civil war is actually even proceeding since I think 2020 election.
Yes.
The country has been in
Embroiled in civil war.
civil war. 50,000 killed, 2.6 million displaced internally, and 18 million are facing hunger. So these are some of the figures. And then we have the opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi, who was basically heading the National Unity Government, is now arrested. So technically, it is said 60 to 70% of the area is now with the rebels. So this is one, and somehow the National Unity Government or the UNG is recognized by US and European Union. So West has that support. Now, if you look at the warring groups, right from north, you have the Kachins, then you have these are big tribes
Yes.
or geographical zones, Tangs, Shans. Then you have this PDF, which is basically front of the NUG, Chin, Arakans, and then we have Tatmadas, which is the juntas or government's forces. So I would say there are 6, 7 warring groups, and through that there is China-Myanmar economic corridor, which is under development.
Yes.
It starts from the Yunnan province of China, and then basically if you look at northeast to southwest.
It also ends up in the Rakhine state of Burma.
It gets very closer into Rakhine state. So
Towards
from
the
Mandalay,
coast,
it splits into 2 corridors. One goes to the old port of Rangoon or Yangon, and the other goes to newly developed deep sea port. Basically, it's Kyauk Phu, it is called. So this is in, I think, as you are mentioning, in that state. So this was, and then it was supposed to be connected with Sri Lanka. If you continue, so extension of China-Myanmar economic corridor. And if you look at the 2 shoulders of India, you had one corridor coming from Myanmar and one coming from Pakistan.
Yes.
And even you look at the pressure on CPEC, and now combine it what is happening India in between, so we can understand the larger game. So there are different players playing different games in different regions, maybe with conflicting, I would say, interests. For instance, what was Chinese interest in the region? China also offered Bangladesh a corridor, and India. I think when the CPEC was launched and B&R came up, that they would, want that India should also join. So they had basically China, India, Bangladesh, and then going again, passing through Calcutta and to Bay of Bengal. So they had, but somehow India, I think, refused, and Bangladesh didn't have a land corridor with China. But definitely the China-Myanmar corridor could have been laterally connected with Bangladesh. So this could have been the game. So in Myanmar, China would like to protect their corridor. So it means they would support, one, the government or the rebels, because now part of it passes through territory which is controlled by the rebels.
Yes.
So it's a very, I would say, catch-20 position for the Chinese. What will be the American interest would be, one, again, bring back Aung San Suu Kyi and maybe an anti-China regime. And then they basically start controlling this part of Bay of Bengal and basically Indian Ocean. And they shut this route permanently for China. And then, of course, there are groups. They have their own interests. NUG has its own interest, and then is the Tatmadaw, the government has its own interest. Even if it stabilizes, some strong leader comes up in Myanmar, it's going to be, I think it will take a while for area to settle. So technically, this corridor has serious challenges. I will not say it has been shut down. So there is a kind of frustration. Now, when you come to Bangladesh, uh, Bangladesh also geographically threatens the Siliguri corridor,
Yes.
because from where you can travel 19, 20 kilometers, then you enter, Nepal or other states like Bhutan, and you link up with China. So China is already through with Nepal. We have a communist government which has a mixed record. Bhutan is already talking directly. So Indian North is already threatened. And if you look at India, China, so-called line of actual control, it is 3,500 kilometer undemarcated, the longest undemarcated border in the world. And I
Yes.
think there was some news on social media, I don't know. It is all that Chinese are 20 kilometers inside, and Indian soldiers are requesting that there was a navigation error. But we don't know. But this is just, I think,
Yeah.
last 48 hours, this video, why this video has come, and what is the game plan. So Chinese have their own test. They also wanted in Bangladesh to have, ports, development. Bangladesh also imports a lot of weapons from China. I think 70-80% of their hardware comes from. And now there is a development that Pakistan is also going to support them militarily, especially in terms of artillery shells and small arms. So this is an interesting development being seen in India. Now we come to the US in Bangladesh. What would be their interest? One, they would never like India to have total influence. And they would like to have a government which is definitely neutral, which can balance between India and China and US. So let's say in case they, as the Indians are claiming that it's Dr. Yunus had support from the US. So these are the US interests. And they would also like to check, Chinese interests. China would definitely like to open up into Bay of Bengal. So India considers herself, and then of course comes Pakistan or ISI.
Yeah.
So if India says it, I am not saying it myself, that ISI played a role in overthrowing Hasina in collaboration with Chinese and Americans and Jamaat Islami. So you can draw your conclusion. Suppose it happened, then I think Indian research analysis is being failed very badly, and social media is criticizing them. The
Yeah.
one, you couldn't force it. The other is you couldn't have a proper, let's say, rescue or maybe some space with the new regime. And somehow,
Apparently, they are not forcing a lot of things these days. Another important thing that comes over in here is that India is also part of the Indo-Pacific Alliance, the Quad, in short, and then they have so-so relations with the United States these days. And why would America want to create problems within India when the forefront and the biggest border and of their partner is standing with China? Or what's the posturing or the attitude, or the US doesn't believe that India is up to that task that it has to directly engage with the Chinese?
I think US has enormous ability to affect change. They can actually create a positive situation out of a totally negative situation. So we can even look at Afghanistan.
Kind of, so yeah.
The way they left, and now I think underhand they are hunky dory with the Taliban. As Sarah Adams said that $17.5 billion have been already siphoned to Taliban to basically check the region and have some control indirectly, maybe through Taliban. I'm not blaming the Taliban is a hired gun, but this is the kind of influence. So if you look at US interests in Bangladesh, they would not bother what is the Indian interest, because I think some of the commentators in India are now saying, some on social media, some on mainstream media. Yesterday I was listening to Mr. Arnab Goswami, and he was running a hashtag, don't try it, US or something like that. And so I think India has some very interesting relationship with the, as you mentioned, they are part of the Indo-Pacific.
Yeah.
They would like to play a major role, but they would not like to militarily get engaged with China. So it's typical Bania approach. Now, if you look at their trades, I have some interesting figures. If you look at the leading 4 trade partners, plus or minus, I'm not going into where is the deficit, but it's the European Union, it's the ASEAN, China, interestingly, and then United States. And if you look at the positive trade that, let's say, where India has surpluses with the European Union and United States, rest they have negative because imports are more and exports are less. So it means that their biggest trading partners, it's very interesting that China is also in top 4. And definitely, India cannot afford to annoy US, because they could then, of course, affect their trade, their exports could be affected, and indirectly, if you look at IFIs and US influence in other regions, they can very easily, like what is done to Russians, even taken them out of the Swiss system. So this is one. So if you look at other things, uh, one which has come up is Americanism is at the peak in India today. The
Yes.
peak, I
It's
don't
at
know
its
how
peak.
Mr. Jaishankar is, doing his foreign policy, and it was visible. I think we discussed when Mr. Modi with 56 and chest and taking the crown of Vishwa Guru landed up in Kiev
Yeah.
and
Got
discussed
humiliated there.
how he was humiliated. So was Zelensky doing it on his own?
Hmm.
I don't think so. I'm sure there was a nod from US that isko ragdo, and then the Indian media started saying that. So they have to balance it out between. They were trying to balance it out, and Zelensky said, "Don't balance. We don't need this. If you want, come up openly." So it means there's going to be a lot of pressure to take side in Russia-Ukraine war. Can India afford it with?
And the sudden targeting of their billionaires and scandals such as against
Yes.
Ambani's and Adani's. Yeah.
Yes, I think that is very important. If you look at Hindenburg report on Adani, so
It's
who's the
come
richest?
twice, I think.
Twice.
Yeah.
And I think initially he lost like $1 billion, $100 billion. Just imagine the kind of loss in prestige and they have, I think, data on money laundering and all that. They are offshore companies, and that is how corporate India has basically progressed. So they have those leverages. In Indo-Pacific, I mentioned that India would like to be given a leading role, but they would not like to do anything. So basically, it's just for consumptions on Raisana dialogue and big seminars and think tanks and I think speaking good English. And then is of course Russia-India relations. I think yesterday there was Anna Goswami again, who was a mouthpiece of BJP and RSS, was very openly saying that yes, we'll do trade with Russia, we'll get oil, we'll get weapons, and still they would like to crib against. So I think in this multi-alignment policy and the new
Would you
era.
even call this a multi-alignment policy or part of a large-scale confusion amongst the ranks?
Yes, some of that, I think, some of the commentators are saying that India is a confused power, and you can't become a big power if you are confused. So have your priorities, and they say that you can't basically handle your neighborhood. You can't handle Bangladesh, you can't handle Maldives,
Sri Lanka,
Pakistan, Bhutan, Nepal,
Bangladesh,
and here you are. And then, of course, now we come to that. I think when we talk of U.S.-India relations in the West, let's not talk of the Christian state, because I think that is very, very critical.
Yes.
So, if looking at the map again, how does Christian state fit in? One is the Christian majority areas. So, if you look at Indian Northeast, right from top, 3 states are very prominent, which are bordering Myanmar, like Nagaland.
Yes.
I think it's, if I'm not wrong, I think 86% Christian. Manipur and Mizoram. So these are prominent. And then, of course, in Meghalaya also, there's quite a. So it means there is a contiguous region, and now combined with the bordering states of Myanmar.
And there are talk of allegations that a lot of Christian missionaries are converting, low caste Hindus to Christianity in Odisha and Andhra.
Yes, that is the point where I was coming. Now you start moving along the Bangladesh northern border. So you have Assam, again, some of the areas, even in Arunachal Pradesh, if you come down, on the western side, there is an enclave of Christians. And then you come to area which is Nepal. So it is said that eastern Nepal has been, targeted by the Christian mission, and there is conversion. And then you come into West Bengal, Odisha, as you are mentioned, and I think Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh. So all told, and there are commentators that maybe it's not a Christian state, sorry, but it is I would say, what do you call multinational kind of state. So you have Muslims, you have like Rohingyas could be asking for a state. You have Christians, and as you mentioned that in Manipur there is a movement going on the Kuki zoos,
Yes.
Kuki zoo, and they said basically it's the lost tribe from Israel. So maybe that's why Mossad comes in. So this is a very, very complicated matrix, and some of the Indian, I think, commentator was saying that basically US is also looking at next Dalai Lama, because current Dalai Lama is very old, and they would like to have their own Dalai Lama for Tibet in next 5 years. I think China has already declared there is. I think Pancham Lama has already come with this young guy. So it means that they would like to have an eyes on Tibet, and for that, in case that materializes or not, so this Christian state gives them a leverage to check everybody, and so it means that disintegration of India, and there comes now the aspect of some of the Jyotishis,
Yes.
some of the
I'm
books.
going to come to that question. Can you say that accurately that the recent changes we saw in 2020 inside Burma, inside Myanmar, was allegedly sponsored by the Chinese, according to the West, and that right now there is a big, greater game which reminds us of the old Victoria times in the 1800s between the British and the Russian Empire over Afghanistan. And India is kind of like between the epicenters, between these two powers tussle, and America, I think, is going for the completely disintegrate this region into multifarious nations, so that there is no state of a buffer between China and its access to oil and trade with the Middle East, or even erstwhile, because we have observed that the US and the European Union has disturbed the overall B and R overall goal of the OBOR project, One Belt One Road initiative. And what the Chinese are thinking is that we have to take over this region completely, create a buffer so that we can effectively trade with other nations before time slips away from them. And the Dalai Lama episode comes into play here.
I think, as you mentioned, that US has enormous capacity. Now, if you look at the B and R, so if you want to discuss the B and R, because then we can focus on the Northeast. The northern route was basically Eurasian route, China, Russia, and then passing through Ukraine, Eastern Europe, and going up to, let's say, Western Europe, which is effectively blocked because of Russia-Ukraine war.
Yes.
So it means the northern route is gone.
Gone.
Then you had three, I would say, major land routes, and then there is a maritime route, which is basically coming through different oceans, but it is linked with ports.
Yes.
So one, of course, as we mentioned, is China-Myanmar, economic corridor into Bay of Bengal.
Then there is
And
CPEC.
Then comes the CPEC.
Yes.
And then, of course, there is a subsidiary which is bypassing Pakistan through Iran.
Yes.
And then it lands up into, either goes to Turkey and then if you link the CPEC head at Gwadar and the Myanmar with the Indian Ocean, so then it opens into not only Middle East but also to Africa. Yeah, within Africa, it has basically it was connecting, let's say, East Africa with West Africa. So it was a grand plan. So it means the northern route is blocked. The Myanmar route is already threatened, and CPEC is also under a lot of stress, I would say. And to wrap it up, they need, the old rimland. I normally call the old rimland is now on fire.
Yes.
What was the old rimland? So it was the European, let's say, area. Then Turkey, Iran, Pakistan. You had India, Bangladesh, or that time East Pakistan and Southeast Asia going up to this was the rimland, Spikesman's rimland. That anybody who wants to basically now dominate the Eurasia, the Eurasian, let's say, heartland should control the rimland. And I say now, instead of controlling, they're putting part of rimland on fire, because
Yes.
the rimland routes passing through Myanmar, Pakistan, Iran, or even I was in Russia North-South corridor. Again, it connects, Europe with, let's say, Gulf and Indian Ocean. So there could be a game plan that this is how they're putting stress. Now we come to, I think,
The
why-
Bhavishya Manika.
yeah,
prophecies.
Bhavishya Malika.
Yeah.
But there are, I think, certain interesting prediction in this book. And I would like Pakistani audience also, and diaspora, and even Bangladeshis and Indians to, I think, comment on it. There's a lot of commentary in India already. There could be political reasons why this book has come up. So Bhavishya Malika Puran. This was written by, the current edition was written by Pandit Sri Kashinath Mishra. It came up in 2023, so it means just before the elections. That's why I'm saying that could, and there are very interesting two messages that remind me, if I miss it, that how they are now balancing between Modi and Yogi Adityanath, because the conclusion drawn from this book. Actually, the book was written in 16th century. This is interesting. When we
So
look
it's
at
like 500 years. before.
500
Yeah.
years plus, And this was Pancha Shakha. It means there were 5 guys who wrote this book, which was led by Sri Achu Tandana Dasa. So this was the name, most probably from Odisha. written in Udi language, then translated now into Hindi. And there's a lot of discussion since its launching in 2023. What it says? It says that 2022 onwards period till about 2040 is going to be huge destabilization in the region, with definitely India as the epicenter. There's going to be chaos starting, and they predicted that will be 2024. This is very interesting.
They also predicted it's going to come from Bengal.
Yes. So they said the epicenter will be Bengal. Now, if you look at Bengal, as we discussed, if you look at Bengali speaking area, there's Bangladesh, West Bengal, part of Odisha, and Indian Northeast, especially those where Bengali said. So it's about 250 to 280 million people. So it's very interesting that they said, as interpreted by I think some of the Jyotishis on social media, that will be because of Mahila, means because of a woman, or that's a group of women, and they were predicting that could be because of Mamta Banerjee or Sheikh Hasina.
Yeah.
And the current interpretation came 4 months back, just before the elections, by one of their leading pundits who does, I think, his podcast on Jyotish or predictions. So what the book predicted is that one, they're going to be upheaval in Bengal. There is going to be because of a woman or woman, and it's going to create a huge tectonic shift. So it means that Bengal will be destabilized for next decade, and that becomes the epicenter of destabilization of India. Initially, there will be 1 million people who will be killed. So it means there's a lot of fighting. So now we can look at who could be the players around this area, because RSS has already built up the stage for that.
Yes.
RSS is already
Within their
talking
own
of
country. Yeah.
arming their people. Hindutva, Hindu khatre mein hai, and their calls to attack Bangladesh. We've discussed it. And then there is basically changeover of the guards in India. So they say that 2024 starts worsening, and when the Raja at that time would complete 13 years. So it's very interesting that Modi, if you look 10 years completed, so his 13 years will be like 2027. He is overthrown or removed or is unable to do it for whatever reason, health reasons. And comes the new Raja, which is a Sanatani. And they are already predicting that is Yogi Adityanath. My question is, was it done on behalf of Mr. Yogi Adityanath
Yes.
to project himself? So the Indians have to, RSS and BJP cadres have to see it, that is it. But definitely the book is, well, I'm talking of interpretation. Book is old. So Yogi Adityanath, is that Sanatani Raja. And then, of course, there is a huge civil war in India. And when the neighboring countries see it destabilize, they attack. They also talk of 13 Muslim countries and China combining to attack. I don't know where does it go. But definitely, India has to look at the situation which is coming up in Northeast and Bengal is very precarious.
I'm pretty sure we're talking about this book is because a lot of their politicians and mainstream media people do believe in this.
Yes, interestingly, if you look at Sanatan Dharm discussion, Vishwa Guru, and although they claim that there will be initial losses, and then I don't know how could they spot Pakistan in that and those 13 Muslim countries,
Yes.
because it was, I think, Mughals period at that time, or let's say Ottomans were there, so maybe. But they talk of then, India becoming victorious, and Mahabharata and all, which is, I think, going too far. So by 2040, 2032 to 2040, things start stabilizing, and this becomes the system. So maybe this is their version of end of the world. They also talk of Kalki Avatar coming from Odisha in one of their mandirs. It means that Lord, I think Vishnu or Kalki Avatar comes and then he helps. So this is, but looking at the initial, I think, timeline of this prediction, this appears to be quite interesting, I would say. That I would say the chaos coming from Bengal has already started. Now it is impacting Indian Northeast. Already you must have heard Mamta Banerjee's latest statement. She was pressurized because of the rape case. And BJP now wanted to overthrow. She said that if Bengal burns, then Delhi will also burn, Assam will burn. She said Odisha will burn, everybody will burn. So it's very interesting that how the Bengalis are looking at it. There's also Bangla nationalism again.
Yes.
It's coming up, and there's talk of Greater Bengal. So I feel that Pakistan should be looking at it, because it definitely affects the region, and a good move that in case we are providing arms and ammunition to Bangladesh, and this is a time to now get into Bangladesh, display camaraderie, develop your relations. They are also like in floods. I think Pakistan has offered uh, goodwill gesture of aid. We should be doing it more. So all told, I think we have interesting times ahead.
Yeah. So that's it for today, folks. We shall see you in the next episode. Please do leave a like and subscribe our channel. Bye bye.